Okay, another OCR GCSE Business Revision for Human Resources. We're looking at organisation structures and communication this time. Let's get going. So, organisation structures, nice and simple. We're keeping it either tall or versus flat organisations. Now, when we talk about tall or flat, we are talking about the number of layers within the organisation. You can see that there is a diagram on the right there. This is fairly tall because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 layers within the organisation. A flatter organisation might have the manager at the top, maybe some managers in the middle, and then the workers, so maybe just 3 layers or 2. And obviously, it will depend on the different businesses. A sole trader business would be very flat, whereas a large PLC might be very tall. So you need to think about which is best for what type of organisation. Okay. You also then need to use the right terminology when discussing what's going on. Now, again, we've had this warning. Remember that OCR only needs you to know these 5 terms. There are a lot more, okay, but these are the ones listed in your syllabus. So authority is to do with who has the power to make decisions. Um, in the diagram here, the CEO has the overall authority within the organization, but the production manager will have authority over the production decisions, and they'll oversee what goes on there. Subordinates are the people who work for you, so basically anyone underneath you. So the production manager and the marketing manager are the subordinates of the CEO. The marketing manager has subordinates of the sales officers, which he's got 2, and each sales officer has got subordinates as well, and they are the salespersons. We don't know how many are down there. We assume there's more than one because it says salespersons. Delegation. So this is when you pass responsibility down through those arrows that you see. So the CEO will pass the responsibility for production to the production manager, and he will delegate that to the assistant managers, and they may look at certain aspects of that, and then the assistant managers may even delegate some tasks down to the engineers. Okay, but delegation follows those lines or arrows on the diagram, and it will go from a line manager to a subordinate. And then you've got 2 specific words or terms here: chain of command and span of control. The chain of command, you would be expected to detail who is in that chain of command. So if the CEO wants to send instructions to the engineers, the chain of command is the CEO, the production manager, the assistant manager, and then the engineers. It's the way that it flows down that diagram. Span of control is normally quoted as a number, and it's the number of people you are in control of. So actually, the CEO has a span of control of 2. The production manager and the marketing manager also have a span of control of 2. Um, it looks like the assistant managers might only have 1 engineer underneath them, so that would be a span of control of 1. And as I said, we're not quite sure what it says for salespersons here, but if we assume maybe that there's a sales team of 10, maybe then the sales officer's span of control would be 10. Okay, so remember that to make sure that you've got a number in there, basically, if you're asked what is span of control. Okay, look at the diagram and quote the number as well as saying that they are the people they're in charge of. So, although it says organisation charts, this also covers the ways of working. It's a strange phrase, but again, on the syllabus, it's listed these different ways of working. Um, it's, I think, mainly based around the more flexible type of working that's going on, but it also covers the basics like full and part-time working. We normally say in this country full-time working anything over 36, 40 hours a week, and then part-time is anything underneath that. It could be very part-time. You might only work 5 or 10 hours a week, or it could be, half of that. So it could be 16, 17, 18 hours. But obviously, having part-time workers means that you might be able to job share with people. You might be able to have a bit more shift patterns. Certainly, if an organisation has to stay open longer, whereas a full-time worker might work 9 to 5 when the office is open, and that's all that needs to happen. The other ones are just different ways of working. So flexible working, instead of working 9 to 5, it might be that you can, as long as you get your 36 hours covered, then you might be able to work, 7 till 7, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, get it out the way, and then you have other time off. Or it might be that you work around childcare or something like that. Temporary working is more of a benefit for the business. They can bring workers in on a temporary basis. It allows the business to be more flexible. Working from home, obviously, a huge hot topic at the moment, because a lot of organisations are now instructing workers not to come back to work in the pandemic if they can work from home. And it simply means that you do work from home. You sit with your laptop, your phone, and you get on with the work. You might be able now to work remotely through computer links or working with the cloud, which makes it easier to access documents from home. Or you might choose to do it again to work around family commitments or something like that. And then working whilst mobile, slightly different from working from home, because essentially there might be an office base somewhere, but you're actually out and about. It might be salespeople, something like that, but working whilst mobile, staying in touch with the office. Now, all of those are just different ways of working for an organization. Or you could choose to be self-employed, where you are your own boss, and then you pick and choose the hours that you work and how long those days are. And that, again, might be useful to you if it suits that type of job. Whether you're talking about being a self-employed builder or a self-employed accountant, you pick and choose the hours that you want to work. Okay, moving on to communication. So again, we've got two types here: verbal and non-verbal. Obviously, verbal or anything with the voice. So a phone call, a meeting, or a presentation. Um, less so with a presentation, but a phone or a meeting, you may not have a record of that because it is a verbal conversation unless the phone call is being recorded. And the same with a meeting unless someone's actually taking some minutes. Presentation like this is, obviously I'm describing what's on the presentation, and you might not get the full transcript, but a presentation would have the key points on that you could still refer to. But that's often one of the criticisms of verbal communication. You've then got non-verbal communication, and that often means that you have some sort of record as well, because you're not talking, you're sending a letter, a text, or whatever. Again, you've got a certain number there. You've got 5 non-verbal communications: letters, emails, text, social media, and website. Um, Obviously, it depends on the situation and the information you're trying to communicate as to which one of these is the best to use. Probably not a good idea to make people redundant via text message. And we've seen some of that in the newspapers sometimes about organisations that have not handled that sort of information or communication very well. But yes, so you've got letters that arrive through the post. Obviously, email tends to be the favoured way these days, even if that is attaching essentially an electronic version of the letter to that email as well. You can, with text, obviously that would tend to probably be more of an internal communication between workers, between salespeople on the road, and things like that. And social media and website, well, when we're talking about communication, we're not just talking about telling a worker they need to work harder or they've got to do something differently. We're also talking about communicating with the outside world, with customers, with suppliers, and so on. So you may use social media and website to help that side of that type of communication. So that links into this, the importance of communication. We've got communications that cover all the different functional areas of the business. So marketing communication will be linked to communicating with your customers, cover things like advertising and so on, as well as market research. Finance communication with lenders, investors, banks, okay, and making sure they understand the financial situation of the business. Operations communication is going to cover your suppliers, and understanding the production capabilities, so that within the production department of the organization. Human resource communication is going to be linked to training, and those sorts of things, motivation, and communication with the government. That could be about planning, it could be about grants, and those sorts of things, and taxes. But they're all forms of communication that a business will have to undertake. The other thing that we can see at the bottom there is digital communication. So this covers all those areas where you might use electronic technology to help you communicate, okay? And that could run across all of those different types of communication there: marketing, finance, operation, human resources, and the government as well. Um, and that's a growing area to consider, thinking about what elements of it might be free, things like social media, and then also buying into packages that allow you to communicate with customers and so on, for the business.